So it all starts with our boy doing the classic teenage thing, looking out the window and complaining about life when some bald bastard face plants the glass right next to him. Then this bastard leans in with a punchable grin going, "Oops, my hand slipped, mind telling me your name so I can properly apologize?" Zeon doesn't think about it and goes, "I'm Zeon, just Zeon. That's it, no last name." The bully finds this hilarious and asks if his mama was too busy to teach him daddy's name, but Zeon tunes him out because look, every single person on this bus is convict cargo headed to the labor mines. Nobody here is winning at life, least of all bald and annoying, who now sits down, throws an arm around Zeon like they're bros and starts doing the whole "we're all criminals here, might as well get along" routine. Then he asks what Zeon's in for. Zeon, officially done with the bit, answers with a punch that rearranges the guy's face and launches him backward across several rows. Our boy stands up from his seat, cracks his knuckles and goes, "If you are really dying to find out, then fine, murder." Then the scene shifts to Neo Soul and Zeon starts telling his story of him killing a person. Now if we go into technicalities, he didn't kill a person because in this post-apocalyptic fucked up world, only the strong count as human. And he killed some street rat who tried to jack his stuff. Nothing personal, just trash taking out trash. Except the dying rat used his last breath to drop the worst possible plot twist. My brother is Jiri Young, as in Jiri Young the Awakened, as in a walking demigod who is now definitely going to find you. Congratulations Zeon, you just speedran your own funeral. Which is exactly why he's on this bus to the middle of nowhere trying to disappear into the sand. Cut back to the present and our boy's bad luck is still the same because that bastard stands back up almost immediately, wipes the blood off his face, gives Zeon a full psychopath smile and asks if he's done. Then he grabs our boy by the face, throws him to the windshield and cracks his knuckle and suddenly he lights up. Meanwhile, our boy is panicking. He's like, "Fuck, I tried so hard to run away and stay quiet, but what is this rotten luck? I ended up offending an awakener." And while he's having a panic attack, something huge slams the bus. Passengers go flying, then the whole bus gets yanked sideways into a massive sand whirlpool. Some blood-covered passenger screams at the driver to do something, but the driver is just sitting there mumbling like his brain got unplugged, and right before the sand swallows them, the guy catches the last thing the driver says, "This isn't the road to the mine." Inside, everyone's getting tossed around like toys as sand pours through the windows, and Zeon just watches the light shrink and thinks about how his whole life has been the same miserable loop. And as he's dying, he's thinking how this is all a classic cliché plot of a third-rate manhwa. A weak bastard dying miserably, and just in a few moments. His hand is the last thing above the sand. Except Zeon's eyes snap open, his whole nervous system is glowing bright gold. All of a sudden, all sorts of visions flash through his head of the old world buried underneath the Statue of Liberty's head, chilling in the dunes like a forgotten action figure. The Eiffel Tower snapped in half and half eaten by sand, and entire cities reduced to rusted skeletons baking in the sun. From space, Earth isn't blue anymore, it's all covered in sand. And Zeon locks his jaw and decides, no, absolutely not. He is not ending up as another nameless corpse in the world's biggest graveyard. Then almost like pure instinct, he flicks his finger and yells out, "Sandblaster," and a burst of energy blasts through the bug, ripping it in half. Our boy walks out drenched in bug juice thinking to himself how he's not gonna die. He'll somehow survive in this damn world covered in sand. Then he finally takes a breath and realizes how his heartbeat is going crazy. Every cell in his body is buzzing and he's staring at his hands like, wait, did I just awaken? Meanwhile, the sandworm he apparently just tanked is not done. This thing rears up for one last bloodthirsty roar, ready to finish the job. And Zeon, this bastard who 30 seconds ago was fertilizer, plants his feet and shouts back at it like, "Come on then." And right as our newly awakened hero is about to have his big moment, some absolute unit materializes out of nowhere, shoves Zeon out of the way, and tells him he's blocking the path. The massive dark-haired man swings, and the shockwave alone sends Zeon flying across the dunes like a rag. He lands rolling, coughing up blood and sand, and looks up just in time to see a colossal industrial-sized blade come down on the worm. After he was done with the bug, Hanyang was just standing there, aura farming, and then ordered his crew to move out. Zeon is on the ground processing the fact that he almost died, and the guy who saved him didn't even look at him. Then out of nowhere, a girl with big blue hair pops in beside him, cackling like a maniac, announcing that the giant is their captain. This is Giselle, and before Zeon can even blink, she's on him. She grabs his arm at a speed that shouldn't be legal, and he's immediately like, oh no, this one's worse. She's mocking the sandworm, not even a worthy opponent. Hanyang is walking off completely bored of his own W, and Giselle just hoists Zeon into the air like a sack of potatoes, and promptly tumbles into the sand with him. She's laughing the whole time, examining his bare forearm with actual childlike curiosity, wondering aloud what rank and ability he has, and then her face drops. She yells over to the captain, points at Zeon's arm, and announces to the whole squad that this kid has no rank insignia. Just then 4 eyes started yelling and screaming from the truck that the sun is setting and the desert at night is where dreams go to die. Giselle looks at Zeon and asks the captain what they should do with him, noting he'll definitely die out here alone. Hanyang gives him this long, calculating, gray-eyed stare. Finally, the captain shrugs and says, throw him in the truck. He was heading to the mines anyway. Giselle celebrates like she won a prize and yeets him into the back. Cut to Zeon bouncing around in the back of the truck with the supply crates, and while everyone else is doing their thing, our boy is quietly running his own experiments. He opens his palm and a tiny perfect spiral of sand starts spinning above it, responding to his thoughts. Yeah, he awakened, all right, and this is where it gets interesting. He finally looks at his forearm and realizes the insignia is there. It's just the exact color of the desert. Now Zeon does a quick mental rundown of what he knows about the ranking system. The color of your insignia tells you what kind of power you're working with. Giselle's whole manic energy, magic type, bright blue mark, Captain Hanyang Biome, definitely a combat type with a blood red aura, the whole intimidation package. And Zeon, direct sand manipulation, something he's never even heard rumors of. His mark officially reads rank F, the absolute bottom of the barrel, the participation trophy of awakenings. But the power he can feel sitting inside him stretches out like the desert itself. No limits. And that's when this sinister little smile creeps across his face. Because for the first time in his miserable life, he feels like he's got an advantage. He decides to keep this whole thing a secret until he can solo the whole world with his sand powers. Fast forward, and the truck rolls up on the monocrystal mines. Zeon is still tied up and surrounded by guards, but the vibe is completely different now. He's scanning everything. A red-haired guard shoves him forward and orders him to move his legs. Zeon complains about the ropes, and the guard tells him to shut it before he gets gagged too. Meanwhile, Hanyang Biome and Giselle are hanging back by the truck watching him get marched inside. Giselle stretches, yawns, and writes the whole thing off as a fluke. The kid got lucky, the sandworm didn't finish its lunch, but the captain isn't buying it. He remembers that hole on the sandworm's head. That can't be luck. Plus, he remembers feeling a brief spike of raw pressure right before he swung, and his gut is telling him this scrawny kid is not what he seems. As Zeon disappears into the mine, Hanyang Biome feels a rare pang of regret that he didn't even ask the boy's name because something tells him they're going to run into each other again. So our boy Zeon gets marched deep into this neo-mining settlement, and folks calling this place a settlement is generous. It's basically a giant underground prison lit up by these buzzing neon signs, with sketchy metal buildings stacked on top of each other. The streets are packed with the kind of people who'd stab you for a sandwich, all drinking and eating whatever scraps they can dig up. Zeon's kind of impressed at how big the black market is for a slave labor mine. Then he asks the redhead if he's leaving him like this, what is he supposed to do? But the redhead just spins around and yells at our boy that he isn't his babysitter, and casually mentions he'd love to put a bullet in his skull before drop-off. Zeon backs off immediately and tells him all that he wanted to ask is what he's supposed to do here. The redhead tells him to do whatever the hell he wants. So now our boy is alone, hungry, and officially registered as expendable garbage in the system. He decides to use his little window of freedom to look around and find some food. He wanders up to this beat-up market stall, where an ancient wrinkled old man is grinding spices with the weird calm energy of a guy who has definitely murdered people. Zeon tries to make small talk, but something in the air just goes wrong, and his survival instincts start screaming at him to keep his eyes on this old-timer. Behind the counter there's a faded propaganda poster that says "May our labor illuminate Neo's soul," with a bunch of ridiculously happy miners on it. The old merchant, whose name is Klexi, clocks Zeon, staring, and asks him if he finds the government's little drawing inspiring. Klexi immediately starts talking in riddles, and drops the bombshell that mana crystals are not what's actually powering Neo's soul. Zeon, who has already grabbed a skewer of meat off the display and started eating it because he's starving, looks up and asks what the hell he means. Klexi points a finger right at his face with this creepy little smile and explains the big secret. The desperate street rats they ship down to the mines are the fuel. Once one batch burns out, they just bring in more trash to replace them. It's a scary story, but Zeon doesn't flinch though and just fires back that at his age, the old man should be preparing for the afterlife instead of giving TED Talks to newcomers. Klexi laughs in his face and then shows he knows way more than he should, and asks how the inside of a giant sandworm feels. Zeon is surprised that the rumors have already spread, but he doesn't care. Our boy just shrugs and says he came here to make money, not to chat. So Klexi decides to show him something interesting, and points to these dusty shelves in the back stuffed with rusted junk and cardboard boxes. Zeon looks and immediately thinks this old man has finally lost it, because it's literally a pile of garbage. But then Klexi's eyes go cold. Those boxes? That's the leftover belongings of every miner who came before him, a little museum of dead men. He explains that every newcomer walks in acting tough, holding on to their little keepsakes and their pride, but eventually the fear of dying in the pitch-black mine breaks them, and they start selling everything they own, including their dignity, just to buy one more day of misery. Then they die anyway and get forgotten. He wraps up his motivational speech by telling Zeon that a real man leaves a legacy, and trash like him will just leave more trash. Zeon finishes his meat, slams the empty skewer down, and asks how much he owes, expecting normal prices. Klexi's grin widens and he says 10 souls. Zeon almost chokes. 10 souls for one piece of street meat. Like the thing was seasoned with actual gold. Klexi reminds him that in an underground hellhole, food is a luxury, and that skewer he just inhaled was worth every coin. And right as Zeon is about to throw hands over the world's worst restaurant bill, the vibes in the stall drop through the floor. Out of the shadows of the alley come a bunch of armed thugs holding rusty cleavers, axes, and knives, cutting off every exit. Xian still doesn't fold though. He glares right back and says he isn't paying a thief a single cent. Then this giant of an enforcer just appears behind him, casually like a boss fight cutscene. Klexi crosses his arms having the time of his life and asks Xian what his next move is. Xian tries to play it cool, saying it's physically impossible for a fresh prisoner to have that kind of money on him, but the enforcer just squeezes harder, and Xian has to fake being chill and ask them to talk it out. Klexi chuckles and says he's a very reasonable businessman, before pointing right at Xian's pocket. He wants the high-grade mana crystal Xian smuggled in. Xian freezes because how does this old man already know about it? He remembers everything he went through to keep that crystal safe. He tries one last thing, asking if he can just start a tab, but the giant dude wasn't having it. He bashed our boy's head on the counter. In the next second, Xian activated his powers. The giant's hand went flying. Everyone around him was shocked, and then he went all crazy, doing an AoE attack, letting everyone know that they are just bugs in front of him. Awesome, right? But bro was just imagining himself in an aura edit because in reality nothing like that happened. The giant is just holding him by the head, asking him if he's been daydreaming because our boy has been staring into space this entire time like an idiot. Xian snaps out of his little daydream and does the math fast. Yeah, he's got the power now, but his body's wrecked and his sand magic is basically non-existent. Starting beef with a whole syndicate right now gets him killed, easy. So he sighs, pulls out the glowing blue mana crystal, tosses it on the counter, and tells Klexi to take it and choke on it. Klexi's eyes go wide because this rock is huge and clean, way better than some newbie should have. Still, he lowballs him, offering maybe 100 souls. Xian loses it, saying it's worth triple that, and Klexi just laughs, says supply and demand works different down here, and tells him to go feed himself to the sandworms if he doesn't like it. With no other options, Xian smashes his own head into the counter, out of pure frustration, whispering to himself, not yet, not the time. When he looks back up, he's bleeding and grinning and coldly tells the old thief that if he's already getting robbed, he wants a bonus from the junk pile too. The giant enforcer standing nearby growls at him to watch his mouth, since this whole settlement is full of thieves. Xian looks him dead in the eye and goes, yeah, I'm looking at the biggest one right now. Klexi actually respects that and tells him, fine, first-timer discount, go pick anything from the back. So Xian walks over to a pile of dead men's leftover junk and starts digging through boxes, rags, and broken parts, not really caring. Klexi watches him from the counter, noting this kid's got a weird stubbornness most workers lose after a while. Out of nowhere, Xian pulls a joke disguise out of the pile, fake glasses with a nose and mustache, and puts it on over his bloody face with a totally straight face. Klexi says it's rare to see a dead man walking with that kind of humor. Then Xian's goofy expression drops instantly. Something under a pile of rusted iron catches his eye and he freezes. Klexi mentions it's just an old antique some caravan left behind ages ago. Xian picks it up anyway, still wearing the dumb glasses. It's a heavy, ornate old hourglass with strange shimmering dust inside, and he feels weirdly drawn to it. He tells Klexi this is my bonus. Klexi, thinking the kid has no clue what real value looks like, pats him on the back mockingly and calls him a genius at picking useless garbage. Xian walks off with his junk, but before he's gone, he glances back and asks the old man's name. Klexi shouts back, Klexi, cackling like a lunatic. Xian spits on the ground and says he hopes he never has to see that wrinkly face again. Klexi just chuckles and mutters that he'll be seeing him a lot sooner than he thinks. Cut to the evening, and our boy's chilling in his room playing with the hourglass on the floor in front of him. He figures he's got about 10 minutes before the sand runs out. He sits cross-legged, closes his eyes, and tries to meditate through the trauma of the worst day of his life. When he opens his eyes, they're glowing amber, and he grabs the hourglass and says, move. Nothing happens. The sand just keeps trickling like it can't hear him. Disappointed, he figures the thing has nothing to do with his sand powers and is just useless decoration. But staring at it next to some old toy and a broken clock, he gets hit with major deja vu. Like someone left this hourglass here specifically for him to find, even though he's sure he's never seen it before. Before he can process that, his door gets kicked off its hinges. In storms, a huge guy is screaming like a maniac. He yells at Xian, asking why he isn't at the mining line yet, annoyed he had to hunt him down personally. Xian, not backing down, calmly says his name isn't Bastard, and also nobody told him where to go. Wrong move, buddy, because Park Manhwa decided it was disrespectful to him, and then proceeded to beat the crap out of him, and then Xian could barely breathe through all the punches and kicks. Eventually that bastard gets bored, tosses him aside like garbage, and tells him to get up and follow if he wants the beating to stop. Xian drags himself up, ribs aching, and stares at the guy's back, quietly promising himself he's going to kill this man with his own hands, no matter what. A bit later, they arrive at Sector 3's mining shaft, a mess of rusted carts, iron rails, and toxic steam clouds. An old miner in scarred gear is waiting, and Park Manhwa tells him to gear up the useless bastard. The old guy helps Xian into an orange vest, warning him not to lose or damage anything because every piece of gear comes out of his pay, and every crystal he mines belongs to the company. Xian straps on a helmet with a dirty headlamp, trying to figure out what his actual wage is, when suddenly a pickaxe slams into the ground right next to his head. Park Manhwa stands over him, yelling that the pickaxe is coming out of his pay too. then asking if he needs lessons on swinging a stick with a rock on it. Then he points toward the darkest, sketchiest part of the mine and says, "Throw this idiot into shaft 972. The old miner goes pale and tries to argue that shaft 972 is unstable and full of dangerous stuff, but Park Manhwa threatens to throw him down there instead. So the old man just nods, terrified, and starts dragging Zeon toward the gates. Park Manhwa shouts one last warning, telling him not to come back up without mana stones or he might just kill him. Zeon, half dead already, just mutters, yeah, screw you. So Zeon's heading down into the mine with this old miner, and the guy just casually drops that Zeon showed up on literally the worst day possible, since some dude named Park Manhwa lost everything gambling last night and needed a punching bag. Zeon's ears perk up though. Wait, there's gambling down here? The old man's like, yeah, and goes on to explain the lower levels are basically a whole second slum. Illegal gambling, sketchy booze, drugs, the works, all just to keep the prisoners too doped up to cause trouble. Basically the evil twin of the city up top. The elevator's creaking the entire way down like it's going to give out any second, and Zeon's holding his pickaxe like he could not care less about any of this. While the old man's still going on about how none of this beatdown was personal, Park Manhwa just gambled his life savings away and needed someone to take it out on. Zeon complains his skin's too soft for manual labor, completely unbothered by what's coming. Then the elevator jerks to a stop somewhere with basically zero light, and the old miner steps out and quietly goes, "Don't worry about blisters, kid. You won't be here long enough." Zeon mutters something like, "So this is the famous shaft, 972. And immediately his gut starts screaming at him that something's wrong. He asks if he can just mine some crystals real quick and radio up when he's done. And the old man's answer is the stuff of nightmares. You're not coming back. Over a dozen guys have disappeared down here in the last 2 weeks, with no bodies and no explanation, including 4 experienced miners. The old man actually knew personally. Before Zeon can even process that, the elevator slams shut and rockets back up, leaving him completely alone in the dark. The old man looks down through the grates all guilty and says, "I'm sorry, kid, and thank you." Actually thanking him for being dumb enough to walk into a death trap so nobody else had to. It hits Zeon all at once and he starts screaming up the shaft, begging the guy not to leave him there. That fear turns into straight up rage real quick. Zeon's cursing out Park Manhwa and this whole garbage system for basically sentencing him to die because some rich guy couldn't stop gambling. He loses it and smashes his pickaxe into the cave wall, except the rock's way tougher than it has any right to be, and the shockwave rips the tool clean out of his hands and sends it flying into the pitch black abyss. He lunges after it and grabs nothing but air. He forces himself to calm down and actually look around, and that's when he realizes this isn't a normal mine at all. He's like, what kind of place is this? Because the mist swirling around his boots isn't dust. It's raw, unrefined mana, pure liquid magic, so concentrated a regular person would just die from the overload in seconds flat. He yanks his helmet off to get a better look, wondering where all this power's even leaking from. He crawls around in the dark, feeling along this freezing, jagged floor until his headlamp catches something metallic. He's relieved for a second, grabs it and realizes it's his pickaxe. But then his face drops because the handle's snapped clean in half. He mutters something like, "Well, at least I found it," trying to look on the bright side for once, and for a split second, he actually thinks maybe his luck's turning around. Nope, the floor just disintegrates under him out of nowhere, and this massive whirlpool of deep red energy rips open right beneath his feet. His eyes go wide as some invisible force just yanks him straight down into a glowing void, and he's falling and screaming, trying to figure out if this is a portal or some kind of magic anomaly swallowing him whole. His helmet and broken pickaxe are falling with him, spinning through the dark, his headlamp flickering until everything just gets eaten by the shadows. While he's falling through this endless void, his brain starts unraveling from the weightlessness, and all these brutal childhood memories come flooding back. He sees himself as this scrawny, starving kid abandoned out in the rain, while adults just walk past muttering that a street rat like him won't survive the week. Back then all he wanted was to exist somewhere without that constant hunger gnawing at him. He remembers stealing a scrap of meat off a market stall one winter, and getting his bones broken by the merchant guild as punishment for it. Another memory hits sprinting through rainy alleys with a mob chasing him down, screaming that his pathetic life ends right there, and all he ever wanted was to just daydream about a normal future like any other kid. Even though his life was shit, at least no one was actively hunting for him. But then that too happened. All Zeon ever wanted was a normal life, with no death constantly hanging over him. The simplest thing in the world except for him, it was always some impossible fantasy. All that pain lights this nasty hatred in his chest, and right then impact. Zeon jerks awake, gasping, face down on cracked burning rock, thick vapor scorching his lungs with every breath. He drags himself up, grabs his throbbing head, and tries to figure out where the hell he ended up. The air's suffocating, blazing hot, and unbearably humid. He touches the ground and his fingers come back covered in fine gray powder, and it hits him. This isn't dirt, this is literal volcanic ash. He wipes the blood and sweat off his face, looks up and his eyes go wide with pure terror as the landscape reveals itself through the smoke. Lakes of lava, rivers of molten rock, and massive columns of fire roaring into the sky. Our boy just got dropped straight into the middle of an active volcanic dungeon. So while Zeon is processing all of this, he looks down at his hands and they're throwing off orange sparks like a busted sparkler. Because the ambient temperature in this place is somewhere between medium rare and well done. He ducks behind a rock to catch his breath and does the mandatory isekai protagonist check. Nope, not a dream, not a fever hallucination. This is a real active dungeon and he is really about to die in it. His hands are black with volcanic gunk, his lungs are basically getting exfoliated by sulfur, and he figures if he stands still any longer, his lungs will dissolve. So he tightens his boots, rips a strip off his shirt, ties it over his face, and gets that cold protagonist look in his eyes. You know the one, the I'm about to speedrun this hell level look. He scans up through the smoke and spots the tallest mountain in the whole cavern, and decides, yeah, that's the ticket, so that's where he's going. He takes off sprinting, kicking up ash, and starts yelling motivational stuff at himself, mid-run, which is a personality trait I did not expect, but here we are. He is out here screaming his own name and swearing he will never give up. Like, bro, nobody asked. Save the oxygen. He leaps over a crack in the ground and immediately the crust caves in under him, because the universe hates him, specifically, and he almost yeets straight into a bottomless fire pit before scraping his fingers onto a ledge. Then in the same breath, he does an acrobatic twist midair to dodge lava geysers erupting out of the ground and somehow slaps a hand onto a scorching rock shelf and drags himself up. He collapses on the other side, gasping, and does the classic anime punch the ground move because he is furious. He starts cursing out this park Manhwa guy and swearing a blood oath that he's going to personally end this dude the second he gets out. Then he catches himself mid-tantrum because he realizes the rage is literally cooking him faster. Anger raises body temp, which in a lava dungeon is basically self-inflicted damage. A little bit of galaxy brain from Zeon. Respect, he gets up, tells himself to stop overthinking and just runs. And of course, right at the peak of his next jump, hanging helpless in the air with zero options, the ground below him splits open and a giant mouth the size of a building tries to eat him whole. A big-ass rock behemoth, made of black stone and glowing magma veins, bursts out of the depths, slams into the canyon wall and triggers an avalanche of boulders and fire like the world's worst pinball machine. The thing's head rises out of the flames, glowing eyes locked on Zeon, magma dripping from its stone fangs. Zeon reacts on pure instinct and throws his arm forward, and the volcanic ash in the air obeys him. It swirls up to cushion the incoming hit, and mid-panic our boy realizes, so I was right, I can control the volcanic ash as well with that. He lands hard on that narrow ledge, dodging the strike and belly flops onto stone. And then the real problem hits him. It's not the giant rock monster, it's that he literally cannot breathe. His nose is burning, his chest is heaving, the air itself is trying to kill him harder than the boss is. And for a second lying there in the gloom, he genuinely thinks this trench is where he dies. Then he mutters out loud to nobody that it would be so unfair to die in a hole before he ever even got a girlfriend with that. He slams his foot down, refusing to let his legs quit. Right on cue, a massive burning mouth opens up inside the sea of lava, radiating an aura so heavy Zeon can barely stand. He throws his hands up screaming, and then a mocking, amused voice just casually rolls through the flames. Voice goes, this kid has a pretty interesting ability. Zeon is spinning around, trying to figure out who the hell is talking inside an active volcano. And then from way up in the cavern ceiling, a human silhouette just drops. It's an old man smiling, falling out of the sky like he's taking a stroll through the park. He hits the ground with an impact that kicks up a shockwave of shattered rock and dust, and Zeon is just staring like, what in the actual gotcha pole is this? Meanwhile, the old man is still mid-superhero landing, and when he hits the ground he leaves a full crater, sending Zeon flying like a ragdoll straight into a wall. Bravo must have hit max 3 on impact, because Zeon's eardrums are just blown, ringing so bad he can't hear a damn thing. Dust settles, Zeon drags himself up, wiping grime out of his eyes trying to process what just happened to the magma monster and who the hell this old man even is. The monster's basically past tense now, and the old man is as chill as anyone can be. There isn't even a scratch on him. Zeon clocks it instantly. This dude isn't some regular awaken, he's a completely different tier of scary. Then the old man turns, locks those crimson eyes on him, and it's like getting x-rayed by the devil. Red aura just pouring off him. One slow step forward and the stone floor cracks under his boot, and he goes, who are you? With enough menace to stop Zeon's heart. Zeon's frozen. The old man smiles this lethal little smile and says, answer before I count to 3, then just starts counting. 3, 2, and the pressure in the air is doubling every second. Zeon can literally see his own terrified reflection in this maniac's eyes, fully loaded and ready to end him. Then the old man continues. Last chance, are you really staying quiet? Zeon tries to talk and just stammers, completely crushed by the bloodlust radiating off this guy. The old man points at him, says done, notices Zeon's ears are just starting to work again, and ice cold says die. That one word unfreezes Zeon at literally the last second, and he starts screaming for his life, screaming his name, I'm Zeon, my name is Zeon. The old man pauses, lets out this mocking little laugh and goes, what a dumb name. Zeon's just standing there glaring back, scared and pissed off in equal measure, when suddenly the air between them warps and this dense red energy wraps around both of them, and the old man finally introduces himself as Deoden. Zeon's rubbing his temples at this point, fully done with life, like why do you keep threatening to kill me? and also calling me a dumbass for no reason. Daden looks down at him with this perfect mix of pity and contempt and actually explains what's going on. Turns out they both fell into something called a Desner, basically a spatial trap. When a dungeon gets a mana overload, all that extra cosmic energy rips open a rift and just sucks any living thing nearby into the void, which is exactly what happened to the both of them. Zeon internally screams because of course this is his luck. Of course he somehow ends up in the actual forgotten hole, as he was spiraling and cursing Park Man-ho in his head. Daden casually calls him an idiot again, but this time our boy snaps and he's like, "Stop insulting me, old man." Daden obviously ignores that completely, lunges forward at insane speed, grabs Zeon's face in this bone-crushing grip, and tells him to pump mana into his eyes and actually look at what's around him. Zeon tries to pull away, gets one look from Grandpa, and immediately folds and starts channeling mana into his eyes. Daden tells him to drop his normal vision and see the mana instead, and then Zeon's whole vision just peels back, the cave melts away, and he's suddenly seeing the actual energy structure of everything around him, and he nearly stops breathing on the spot, because there's a thing there. Daden goes, "Congrats, you've been getting stalked by a crimson sand dragon." Then he starts explaining how this thing has magic camouflage and people who encounter him usually get eaten before they even notice it's there. Zeon just shudders, because he'd been standing right under this thing's nose the whole time without picking up a single hint, and if this random old man hadn't shown up throwing hands, he'd be dragon poop right now. So Zeon's just sitting with this mix of relief and frustration, realizing this random terrifying stranger has now saved his life twice in like 2 minutes flat, staring at Daden wondering what kind of insane power is hiding under all that wild hair. And because he's him, he cautiously asks, "Hey, what's your name?" Daden slowly turns his head, looks him dead in the eyes, and goes, "Are you retarded? I just told you. It's Daden." Zeon panics and tries to backpedal. Like, no, old man, I was asking about your powers, and also where the hell are we? Daden tells him this is a dungeon, and it's his personal hunting ground, then laughs like a lunatic, and tells Zeon to use his shiny new awakened eyes and figure it out himself. Everything goes white. Zeon's ears are ringing so bad he thinks he's gone deaf, and when the smoke clears he's just sitting there like, what is wrong with you? What are we even doing here? And of course, right on schedule, a huge flock of birds wrapped in fire come diving out of the ceiling straight at him like flaming missiles. The old man meanwhile is chilling, casually goes, "If you're really worth anything as an awakened, you'll survive this yourself. Don't look at me for help. These firebirds are moving way too fast. Zeon can't even see them. They're just blurs and streaks of red lightning zipping around," and he's cussing the old man out under his breath while trying to hold some kind of stance. One brushes past his cheek and burns his skin. He's dodging like a maniac. But the cave is basically a strobe light of sparks and dive bombs, and there's zero space to think. Running is off the table, he's boxed in on all sides, and for whatever reason these things keep hammering his left side over and over. He swings a hand to swat one away and immediately eats 3 more to the ribs. Blood's pouring down his face, cuts everywhere, and it finally hits him. His sand can't keep up, his eyes can't keep up, he's going to die in this cave. And on top of that, his brain is spiraling because the old man has now saved his life twice, and he's getting mauled thinking about it. And the old man picks this exact moment to chime in, going, "You gonna just lie down and die or actually fight back?" Calls him a pathetic brat, tells him he doesn't know how to use his own power. Zeon's ears are ringing, blood is literally dripping out of his eyes now, and one thought locks in. He has to see what he can't see. Daden's yelling through the fire, "Stop using your weak human eyes, push your mana straight into the nerves, clean it up. Basically shut down human vision and boot up the awakened version." Zeon focuses so hard it feels like his skull's about to split, and his left eye lights up gold, blood running down his cheek. Now he can feel the mana. Suddenly he's slipping past hits he couldn't even see 30 seconds ago, countering with perfect timing, and somewhere in the back of his head he's going, "Wait, did this old bastard plan all this? The second he threw me in here?" And then, obviously because things weren't spicy enough already, some absolute unit of a monster peels itself out of the dark, and Zeon's jaw hits the floor as he finally sees what this dungeon has actually been hiding. Daden, not even a little worried. Dude just throws himself at it, laughing his head off, going, "Been a while since I got this pumped up." With that, Daden charges at this monster ready for a good fight, and it's the biggest letdown of the century, because Gramps splits the thing clean in half with one swing. He just strolls away from the twitching corpse, whining that he barely broke a sweat. Then he goes full grandpa mode, going on about how back in his day, monsters actually put up a fight. Zeon, meanwhile, is standing there watching the big scary lizard get bisected like it's Tuesday, feeling genuinely bad for the thing, and he lets out this tired little laugh at his own life choices because he is 100% running on fumes. Then out of nowhere, a shockwave slams into him, so hard he drops to his knees and throws up on the spot. He wipes his mouth and asks the old man what the hell that was, and Daden goes, "Oh, that was just the dungeon boss clearing its throat. Every dungeon has a final boss, and this one is the whole reason he dragged himself down here." Right on cue, a wild crimson drake appears. Zeon hears Drake and immediately perks up like, "Wait, is that a dragon?" And the old man crushes his dreams instantly. No, it's a drake. B rank, and he's actually annoyed he came all this way for a B rank instead of a real dragon. But this thing is not messing around. It's wrapped in a glowing force field. You know the drill. Red aura means close combat, blue means magic type. This Drake is glowing blue, and seeing that our boy is like this is way too broken. But the Drake didn't stop to hear him complain and immediately fired the shots. Meanwhile, the old man launches himself directly at the source of the fire and brings his sword down straight onto the Drake's skull. The Drake shakes it off and swings back with its claws. Though Dodden tries to counter with his sword, and the Drake actually catches the sword mid-swing. Now it's got him. It opens its mouth to point-blank fire, breath him into a memory. But Dodden reaches out and just clamps the thing's jaws shut, trapping its own flames inside its face. He asks it, real casual, "Does that hurt?" "Don't worry, this is the last time you'll have to feel anything." And then he goes right back to work, declaring that today is officially the Drake's last day above ground. Zeon, meanwhile, is running for his life. He's stuck in the crossfire of a fight so far above his pay grade he can't even find footing to defend himself. So he throws up a sand wall behind him to try to block the incoming shockwaves, and yells at these two to please take their MMA match somewhere else, wondering out loud how this shockwave is alone enough to kill him. Grandpa, on the other hand, is having the time of his life, cackling, riding the Drake and saying how it feels like being in an amusement park. And then another shockwave comes in way too fast for him to do anything about, and Zeon knows immediately that he's cooked. It launches him across the arena, he lands like a wet sack, and gets flung straight toward the magma, and the poor bastard just lies there frozen, realizing he's about to die as a pathetic loser who never even got a girl. Then the scene shifts back to the old man, and he's still bullying the Drake, calling it a disgrace to boss monsters everywhere, and generally roasting it into oblivion. The Drake, understandably tilted, charges up another one of those breath attacks. Dowden just smiles. Bro is genuinely excited that the weakling has something spicy left in the tank. The beam rips through everything, getting bigger as it goes, absolutely obliterating the landscape. When the Drake finally stops, it's convinced the old geezer has been turned into seasoning. Then it hears a voice behind it going, "You looking for someone?" And that's the exact moment the Drake realizes it is cooked. It roars, spins around, and there's Datuan just casually squatting on its back with his sword buried a full meter deep into the thing. He calmly explains he's been hunting a crimson drake for a while now because he needs its heart for his sword crayon to level up. Unfortunate for the dragon, but hey, sacrifices. He shoves the blade in deeper, pumps it full of magic, and the poor beast thrashes around dying while Crayon starts glowing with a fat crimson aura. Dayton looks at his sword all satisfied, whispering sweet nothings to it until Zeon interrupts to ask why the hell he's talking to a weapon like a lunatic. The old man is genuinely surprised the little shit is still breathing. Zeon explains he almost wasn't, when the floor collapsed and he was a second away from being medium rare. But in the very last moment he used his sand manipulation to whip up a cushion mid-fall and saved himself from becoming human ketchup. He can barely believe how good he's getting at not dying, and gives credit to a certain madman whose shockwaves have been beating his reflexes into shape, whether he liked it or not. Dayton is mildly impressed but immediately pivots because there's a bigger problem. The dungeon is closing now that the boss is dead. He grabs Zeon by the shirt and tells him they gotta bounce. Zeon is confused about the manhandling. Then the old man starts laughing, thinking to himself what he's about to do. Then, without warning, he yeets Zeon into a tiny black crack that opens in the air and casually goes, "See you." Our boy is screaming every curse he knows and declaring that Dayton is officially worse than that bastard park man. A second later, he gets spat out the other side, ragdolls across the sand like a bag of laundry, and lies there spitting sand out of his mouth, wondering where the hell he is now. Dayton explains they're on the surface, because when a dungeon boss dies, these little exit cracks open up for free. Zeon, still eating sand, complains that they could have just, walked out like normal people instead of getting flung like garbage. The old man finally snaps and drops the real talk. "Yeah, your sand powers are cool, but right now you are more useless than a blunt knife. So here are your options, kid. Door number 1, head south to New Soul City and go back to being the same dirt-tier nobody you have always been. Door number 2, the fun one. Stick with him and get personally trained from a clueless dumbass into a stronger, faster dumbass." Zeon, understandably suspicious, asks what following him actually means and how long this whole thing would take. Dayton shrugs and admits he has no clue. Could be months, could be years, could be decades. Then he once again asks our boy what he will do. He can go back to his boring nobody life, or he can pick the path where he basically speedrun life with a 99% chance of dying along the way. But if he survives, he'll become much stronger. As the old man presented him the choice, the manic grin is back on our boy's face. He stands up, turns to Dayton, and goes, "Old-timer, have you completely lost your mind? Are you really asking me to leave a completely safe and luxurious life behind and to follow some smelly old geezer through a burning desert with zero guarantees, especially when Gramps could keel over from old age at any moment?" Dayton, without missing a beat, goes, "Yeah, pretty much. That is exactly what I expect." Zeon lets out this massive theatrical sigh like he's making the hardest decision of his life, then agrees anyway. He then spins this whole speech about how whenever someone pisses him off he has to settle it, and admits Dayton is currently on that revenge list, right after praising him as the strongest person he's ever met and probably ever will meet. Bro is basically saying, "I hate you. Please train me so I can kick your old butt." The old man cuts him off mid-monologue to ask if all that confidence means he's just excited to die young. Zeon clenches his fist and declares he'll become stronger than everyone. Daden's response, yeah, that's a one-way ticket to the grave. Keep walking, dumbass. We've got a long way to go. Cut to a few hours later and Zeon is drenched in sweat, dragging himself through the sand like a Sims character on 1% battery. He calls out asking Gramps to slow down because they've been walking for 6 hours, but the old man just keeps trucking in complete silence. Zeon starts yelling at himself, going, I'm not some moody teenager, why am I dealing with these mood swings? Meanwhile, the heat is nuking him, and the loose sand is making every step feel like leg day at Hell's Gym. He starts genuinely worrying about heat stroke. Right as he's about to tap out, Daden finally looks at him like he'd been waiting for this exact moment, and calls him a fool who can't even use a fraction of his own power. Zeon is confused, and the old man reminds him, bro, you are a sand manipulation user. You are struggling to walk on sand. Do you hear yourself? Zeon tries to defend himself with the classic I just awakened, I'm only Fef class excuse, and Danon immediately loses it. He grabs him by the collar and asks if he really thinks everyone else was just born S-class, while he alone got dealt a bad hand. And are you seriously about to give up because you think the universe didn't bless you? Then he drops him back in the sand and tells him to figure it out himself, because nobody knows his power better than him. Just as Zeon is thinking, the old man might actually be a real mentor, Danon immediately starts screaming again that he'll be dead if he can't figure it out. So much for the wise mentor arc. Zeon shakes it off and actually starts thinking. He knows his sand control range is about 5 meters, and the sand out here is only ankle deep, so if he can just condense the sand under his feet into something solid, walking would be way easier. He tries it, and it actually works. The desert suddenly feels like a paved road, but then his mana bar starts draining like crazy, and he realizes he can't keep this up forever, so he switches to plan B and pumps mana into his legs instead, which also just works. Meanwhile, Danon is quietly smiling to himself, having a whole flashback moment about his own energetic youngster days, because despite what Zeon keeps whining about being F-class, the old man can tell his mana control and potential are easily E or D tier. He sees the potential in our boy. Right then, Zeon discovers another trick, that he can just control the sand touching his feet specifically, and comes running up to Danon bragging about how easy walking is now. Then bro gets a little too cocky and flips Gramps the middle finger while telling him to try and match it, and in response the old man bonks him on the head, hard enough to put him face first in the sand, and tells him to stop wasting time on useless nonsense, unless he wants to drop dead. Zeon meanwhile is out cold before he hits the ground. So our boy wakes up hours later face down in the sand, dirt caked on his cheek, and there's Danon just munching on beef jerky like they're at a picnic. The old man goes, about time you woke up, kid. Dragging your unconscious ass across the desert was a real pain. Our boy tries to sit up and immediately regrets every life choice. His whole body is one giant bruise. Danon tosses him a chunk of jerky and tells him to shut up and listen to a story from the good old days. Back then, he says, being weak didn't automatically get you killed, and protecting the weak was actually considered the noble thing to do. That world is long gone now, and you can tell the old man misses it. Then story time ends as fast as it started, and he tells the kid to get moving unless he's a fan of dying. Our boy just quietly listens instead of talking back for once, and the old man rewards him with another piece of jerky. Watching Danon eat, he notices something. Those ancient shriveled up teeth are chewing jerky. No problem. Turns out the trick is you soften it with spit first, then bite. It hits him that the old man isn't just feeding him, he's teaching him how to not die out here. Give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, and all that. They set out again under the night sky. Our boy keeps begging for more jerky, and Danon keeps telling him to zip it. Then the cold rolls in, and Zeon is sneezing his lungs out, shaking like a broken washing machine, while the old man is just vibing like he's on a beach in Hawaii. Meanwhile, our boy still cannot figure out why Gramps keeps having full conversations with his sword. Then the thirst hits and he asks for water. The old man squeezes his shirt and chugs the entire canteen in front of him. Zeon curses him in his head, thinking how this old bastard is keeping important knowledge to himself, so you can squeeze the dew and drink the water collected on your clothes. It could have been good to know this earlier, so now he has no choice left but to lick the dewdrops off his own arms. As he's doing that, Daebeam calls him an idiot, and our boy claps back. Not idiot, dumbass. The old man ignores him completely and tells him to shut up and sense his surroundings. He goes quiet and actually tries. Faint vibrations, coming from multiple directions. Before he can even blink, there are hundreds of glowing eyes and a ring around them. Gramps explains that they are horned hyenas. Normally these things are nocturnal, but bro got caught at dawn, so unlucky. Davian casually asks, you got this, or do you need daddy's help? And the craziness has clearly rubbed off, because our boy laughs and says he doesn't need help from a crazy old man. He starts manipulating the sand, first a sand bullet straight through a hyena's skull. Then he raises giant spikes out of the ground in instant kill zone. But soon the mana exhaustion catches up fast. By now our boy has realized that the raw power alone isn't cutting it. He needs to be smarter about this. He's mid-thought conjuring another sand bullet, when a hyena lunges in and chomps down on his arm. He shakes it off, but his arm is now full of holes like SpongeBob. And that's the eureka moment. Those holes just taught him the most mana-efficient way to shape his sand. He goes still. The pack charges. and right before they reach him, he unleashes the new technique. Hundreds of insanely thin, needle-sharp sand spikes erupt from the ground at once and skewer every single beast in one go. Suddenly, we have multiple party-sized hyena kebabs, and seeing this, our boy just bursts out laughing, exactly like his crazy master. So now that he's figured it out, Zeon is doing maths mid-fight. His whole philosophy is dead. It doesn't matter if their head pops or they get a hole punched through them, so why waste mana on style points? Because mana is basically your health bar out here. Burn it on nonsense and you're speedrunning your way into an early grave. So he's feeling real smug about his spike traps punching clean holes through hyenas. Peak efficiency, he's thinking. The old man's probably slugging it out one enemy at a time like a boomer. Then he turns around to check on Gramps, and the hyenas are literally chewing on his arms and this lunatic is laughing like they're tickling him. Once he's done having his fun, he decides to get a tad bit serious. Suddenly the crazy look is back in his eyes, and our boy knows what is to follow, so he immediately braces himself like, oh no, not this madness again. With a nasty grin, Daebin tells Crayon to annihilate everything, and then slams the sword on the ground. Shockwaves blast sand and beasts alike, hyenas go flying like cannonballs, and our boy barely throws up a sand wall in time to not join them. When the dust settles, he's standing there, staring at the crater and the trail of destruction, completely speechless, seriously wondering if Daebin is even human, because no normal person does that without a skill. And that's when it clicks. Getting cocky around a monster like this is a fast way to die. But then right on cue, karma taps in. Daebin starts hacking and coughing on the dust he kicked up himself, and the alpha of the horned hyenas takes her shot, lunges in and spears him with her lightning-charged horn. Zeon panics and screams at him to watch out. Meanwhile, the old man is just looking down at the horn sticking out of him in mild confusion like, why does this dog have a magic field? Turns out she's at least B rank, and he flat out didn't care enough to notice. And then folks, the worry becomes completely pointless, because Daebin casually grabs the horn like he owns it, lightning crackling through him, barely reacting. Our protagonist hits an error 404 trying to process what kind of quantum physics he's watching. Even the alpha gets weirded out and backs off, because this old freak is enjoying her lightning like it's a massage chair for her sore back. Once he's done with his spa session, he lets the poor sucker know it's the end of the line, jumps on her and drives his sword deep, spraying blood across the battlefield. And Zeon just stands there, realizing he was an idiot for ever worrying about this man. After the fight, it's loot mode. They start harvesting the hyenas, and our boy, now rocking the alpha's hide like a drip upgrade, asks when they're finally leaving. He's surprised Gramps is even taking the horns, but apparently they're valuable material for lightning-based weapons. Then out of nowhere, the old man tosses him a dagger and drops the news. The free meal plan's over, kid. From now on, you hunt your own food. And oh yeah, horned hyena meat is mostly poisonous. Only the flank muscle is safe. Then he catches Zeon, just standing there gawking, and snaps at him to get moving and secure his food before sunrise. So our boy gets to carving until the sun comes up. He already looks way more seasoned than before. Still no water source, but his satchel's packed with meat, and a sand-walking skill makes cruising the desert during the day a breeze, which of course goes straight to his head. He starts taunting the old man like, what's wrong, Gramps? Struggling to walk, the old man throws a punch that our boy somehow dodges and immediately starts feeling cocky, mocking him, but gets bonked on the head nonetheless. While he's spitting out sand, Daedon bluntly tells him his back hurts like hell and a cheap walking trick doesn't make him special. Zeon sulks, going, I was just messing around, man. He was already thirsty and now his mouth is full of dry sand. Except it's not. His mouth isn't actually that dry anymore. The air feels moist. For a second he thinks he's hallucinating, but one look at Daedon's face confirms it's real. And just over the dune in front of them sits the thing every desert traveler dreams about, an actual oasis. For a second he thinks he must be going crazy. So he looks at the old man, and he too is looking in the same direction with that confirmation. Our boy sprints up that dune screaming with excitement because up until now this thing was the stuff of rumors for him. So without putting any more strain on his two brain cells, our boy slides down the sand, desperate for that sweet, sweet water. Seeing him acting like a dumbass, Digcorn clicks his tongue in disappointment. But do you think that's stopping this man? Nah, Zeon runs straight to the edge and dunks his whole head in, letting his crusty desert skin soak up moisture for the first time since he got dumped in this frying pan of a biome. He closes his eyes, letting his thoughts drift, living his best spa day, and then he notices a bright light glowing deep in the lake. Ro just keeps staring at it, getting drowsier and drowsier, casually running out of air like that's not a problem. Daedon yells his name and comes flying down the slope at full speed because there's a whole sea monster creeping up on our boy while he's busy being hypnotized. At the last possible second, the old man yanks him out before he becomes fish feed, throws him on the ground like luggage, jumps into the air and deletes the thing with one clean sword strike. Meanwhile, Zeon, who almost just died, is watching all this and gets distracted by the rainbow forming over the oasis. Man's brain has a 5-second attention span, and every single one of those seconds is booked. Daedon drags the giant fish out of the water and explains it's a sand angler, and then proceeds to drop survival info, telling our boy how it uses the light on its head to hypnotize prey before eating them. Basically a fishing rod with a body attached. Then his face goes dead serious, and he slams the disobedience out of our boy, scolding him for forgetting everything he was taught, telling him how reckless fools like him are always the first to die out here in the desert, and Zeon can only say yes sir. The old man sighs, sees his student is actually listening for once, and drops it. New assignment: skin the monster. Turns out the sand angler is a C-rank magic beast, and its belly skin is perfect robe material, and our boy, genius that he is, asks if the old man really needs a robe that bad. Daoden hits his daily stupidity limit right there, and starts roasting him, calling him dumber than a brainless starfish, and bro's even inventing new insults, asking if the left side of our boy's brain has been hit with a petrification ray, and the right side's been corroded or something. And Zeon couldn't handle the insults. He literally starts bleeding out of his ears again, and apologizes with the world's most nervous smile. The old man goes on, even though the fish has mutated a ton, it still looks like the species that used to live on Earth, so Zeon better take a good look since this is his first time seeing a real one. Our boy studies it carefully, reaches the profound conclusion that fish are horrifying, and gets to work, and the work is going terribly. Gaemdam watches him fumble around and tells him to stop treating the fish like he's giving his grandma a massage. Zeon tells him to mind his own business and locks back in. He quickly realizes the skin is way too tough for a normal knife, so he channels mana into the blade, sharpening it until it slices through clean. And credit where it's due, bro actually starts cooking. He scrapes off the scales and turns them into little needles, then uses the tendons connecting the meat to the bones as thread. Full survival crafting mode, the whole loadout made from one dead fish. Needles, thread, premium C-rank belly leather on paper. This is a legendary crafting recipe. In practice, even with all his Oscar-worthy ideas, the finished robe comes out looking like an absolute crime against tailoring. The materials were doing their part, the craftsman was not. Daoden, lounging back against the dead fish like it's a beanbag chair, takes one look at the thing and roasts him for wasting such a good catch on something so useless. But our boy does not stop. He's like, I've got plenty of material left, and goes again. Cut to a few hours later and he's holding up a finished robe that actually looks decent. Zeon immediately gets carried away, talking about selling these for profit, maybe opening his own tailor shop. Then Daoden calls his name, and Zeon spins around yelling that he's not handing over the robe, but the old man isn't even after it. He's holding up a big sack-like organ, still dripping blood, and tells him to stop messing around and start eating this gallbladder because it's a very rare and powerful medicine. Zeon tries to argue, but Gramps' response is, eat it or I'll beat you to death, and Zeon can't argue against it, so he looks at the thing for a second, hesitates for exactly 1 moment, and then starts devouring it like a starving man, because getting beaten to death is worse than bad flavor. And the flavor is bad, more bitter than orange juice right after toothpaste. But weirdly, a few bites in, his hunger still isn't satisfied, so he keeps eating more and more. The second he finishes, the old man goes, now it's time for you to burn. And before Zeon can even ask what that means, his throat tightens, he starts choking, and it feels like a nuclear reactor going off inside him. His whole body loses control as the heat spreads everywhere, and he's screaming in unbearable pain, while Daejin tells him to quit acting like a child and endure it like a man. Then the old man starts monologuing, everything in life is like this oasis. Everything disappears as if it never existed. The sand anglers are reborn and keep the cycle balanced. Meanwhile, his student is literally cooking alive on the floor. Zeon cuts him off mid-wisdom and tells him to skip the sappy emotional stories and help him. And Daejin, watching the kid writhe around like an earthworm on salt, does absolutely nothing and just goes to sleep. The next morning, Zeon opens his eyes to the old man staring down at him with an evil smile, which nearly scares the soul out of his body, and he yells at him for almost giving him a heart attack. They trade a few more nice words before Daoden asks how he feels, and that's when our boy notices something changed. He feels lighter, his muscles feel stronger, and the mana inside him is close to overflowing. He tests his upgraded body and asks what happened, since it feels like he just took some super soldier serum. The old man explains it's the fish's gallbladder, basically a cheat item for surviving the desert. It makes a person way stronger. It's extremely valuable too, which makes Zeon uneasy about being allowed to eat it, but Daoden brushes it off. He only did it because the kid was too weak and he refuses to be slowed down by dead weight. Zeon argues that he's useful sometimes, and the old man tells him to shut up and start eating because they're not leaving until the entire fish is consumed. Cut to 4 days later, the sand angle is nothing but clean bones. Time to move. Zeon smiles, throws on his new cloak, and they're back on the road, and the weather is not kind to them. They take one step and there is this freaking sandstorm. But it's not a problem for our boy, thanks to his skill. Meanwhile, he's genuinely surprised the old man has the stamina to keep going without slowing down at all. Daoden hasn't spoken in days, which has Zeon wondering if the old man is going through some kind of male menopause. 2 weeks of walking now, and bro is starting to question whether his teacher even knows where they're going. Just then, a giant ant monster pops up behind him, and Zeon blasts it with a sandbeam without even breaking his train of thought. That's how you know the gallbladder diet is working. He's midway through wondering how much farther they have to go, when he notices the ant is still alive. That gets his attention, and he admits the thing is tougher than expected. He was hoping to pass through without trouble, but the desert said no. So he sits down, senses the whole ant colony through his sand powers, and decides he's dealing with them, and he'd better be quick about it, or the old man will kill him before the ants get the chance. So our boy Zeon goes full destruction mode with Sandblaster, turning ants into confetti, and getting bored doing it. And honestly, Sandstorm days are basically a buff for him. Infinite ammo everywhere he looks, just aim and delete. Plus his techniques leveled up fast too. Now after taking down so many ants, our boy turned fully expecting some praise from the old man. But Dowden never slows down. He just keeps marching and leaves Zeon behind to mop up the trailing pests. So Zeon straight up started cursing him, saying how there is not one shred of loyalty in this man. No wonder he's still single at his big age. And while he's busy wondering if the geyser can hear the trash talk, his 10-meter detection radius pings something nasty. Now, bro's always on alert. It's why he reacts instantly whenever a beast shows up. But this ping is different. What he was sensing was closer to pure terror than a demonic beast. Right on cue, the ground erupts and a whole stampede of ants comes pouring out like the desert just opened a portal to hell. Zeon turns to the old man like, "Little help?" And Dowden just plants his old ass down to watch. Seeing him chilling down there, our boy understood what this means. This is like a test for him, so he goes, "Screw it. Can't keep crying to Grandpa every time things get spicy." There's no way the geyser didn't sense this coming. This is a quest, a test. So Zeon locks in. 1,000 ants, 10,000 ants, whatever bugs are bugs. He forms a rolling sphere of sand and traps the entire army inside, and it's already a struggle to hold together when a second batch pops up to ruin his flow. His confidence dies on the spot as the ants drag him off like a bag of trash. My man is out here challenging insects to a one-on-one. Fight me like a man, stop ganging up, and they just keep swarming him like he's the sweetest treat in the desert. He finds one opening, hardens some sand under his feet, and takes off flying, thinking that the ant could only attack him on the ground. But these things stack themselves into a living anthill and keep climbing after him. He flies higher for a better view, thinking he's safe up there, but nope. Turns out giant ants can link up into an even more gigantic ant tower, and when his sand flyer gets stopped mid-air, bro almost shoots himself. The screeching is straight nightmare fuel, as they latch onto his foot like their lives depend on it, yank him down by the ankle, and slam him into the sand with zero mercy. It takes Zeon a full minute to get back up, huffing, puffing, and coughing blood, and when he looks up, Dayton's still watching with the most disinterested face imaginable. Somehow that's exactly the fuel he needs. Once again he's back in the manic mode, turns to Dayton and goes, "Fine old man, watch me survive this." And for the first time since this fight started, Dayton actually reacts a flicker of approval. He likes the kid's spirit, even if he's still a certified dumbass. Because think about it, in a world that turned to crap and got buried in nothing but sand, Zeon's power is basically a cheat code. He could have used it to coast through an easy, comfortable life, and that would have been the end of him. A shallow existence. That's what those narrow-minded idiots don't get. They're so obsessed with their little illusions they don't even know why the world ended up like this in the first place. An awakened person is supposed to master their skill, use it, and evolve it to the absolute limit, not get stamped into some factory-made cookie-cutter soldier. And Dayton might be one of the very few left who still remembers that. Trauma dump time, folks. Seeing our boy fight, Dayton's mind drifts back to the tragedy that shook the world's foundations 100 years ago, the one most people have conveniently forgotten. Back then, the old man was more useless than our boy. He lost count of how many people died in vain right in front of him. Comrades, neighbors, and his own daughter were all victims of the catastrophe. And the wound that never closed? His daughter. He'd never felt so powerless. Everyone who mattered was gone, while he froze like a total idiot. But this kid Zeon? Different breed, he never falters, even with the odds unfairly stacked against him. The way Dayton sees it, this punk could become anything he wants as long as he's insane enough to keep throwing himself into the fray and tiptoeing that line between life and death, because that's where people grow at a terrifying pace. And right on cue, Zeon proves the point by laughing dead in the face of the ant army, like a man who's misplaced his last brain cell. Mid-battle, my man straight up invents a new skill, an ultra-compressed sand missile. Simple, crude, and absolutely disgusting in the damage department, each one packed with compressed gravity, wind, and every scrap of energy he's got, a synergy that cranks the power tenfold. The ants had their chance to kill him before he adapted. They missed it. Now it's massacre o'clock. Dayton smirks as the punk gets all giddy with his little invention, and by the time the bombardment ends, the terrain looks like the moon craters everywhere, ants nowhere. Zeon is very pleased with himself, so busy turning around to brag about his booty to the old man that he completely misses the threat on his flank. The biggest ant in the colony surfaces without a single sound and clamps him in a mandible hold. And no, these critters don't just casually have a high-level stealth skill. The weird foreign feeling spreading through his body explains everything. He's poisoned. His mana is slipping out of his control, the poison blocking his freshly established mana points. Restricted and powerless, all bro can do is bark curses, and the giant ant could not care less about his potty mouth. To this thing he's just prey. When Zeon comes to, he's deep in an underground tunnel, surrounded by his sworn enemies. He's in the ant nest, and the second the colony's larvae sense that dinner has arrived, they skitter straight for the paralyzed human. Ear-piercing screeches, alien faces, the works. Once they're sure he's harmless, they crawl all over him looking for a taste, and these suckers can punch through skin and everything under it. Our boy's the main dish at the most disgusting feast imaginable, and he can't move a muscle. At this rate, he's getting eaten alive. As his vision dims, his life flashes before his eyes, and that depressing trip down memory lane is exactly what lights the fire. Xian claws back enough willpower to fight through the poison and crush one of the parasites snacking on him, which immediately alerts the whole nest that the food is moving, and he laughs at himself for daring to close his eyes like a coward in the first place. Life's unfair. Sure, the flashback didn't have a single good memory in it, but that's exactly why he refuses to die like a loser. The near-death experience shows him past his limits, and the markings on his forearm grow. He grabs the sand beneath his feet and one-shots every ugly larva around him with a spiky explosion. This sends instant panic in the ant army. Their free meal is back on his feet with dozens of compressed missiles floating around him. So our boy Xian looks down at his forearm and boom, he ranks up. A second sandy line on his mark, courtesy of grinding non-stop with the old man. These past few days, the promotion package comes fully loaded too. Poison cleansing, stamina restoration, and a fat boost to his mana capacity. Raw power, mana cap, everything is on a completely different level compared to his F-rank days. And you know what all that upgraded firepower gets him against the Ant Queen? Absolutely nothing. Bro is out here spamming sand missiles, and this bug hasn't taken a single scratch. Meanwhile, the Queen swings back with those fast-moving limbs of hers, and one casual strike smashes straight through rock and turns it into powder. That's the kind of weight class difference we're dealing with. Xian keeps up the sandy barrage anyway, but that black carapace might as well be endgame armor. At this point, my man would celebrate a dent, a scratch, anything. After a few more wasted volleys, he finally accepts it. Sand missiles are not going to cut it, no matter how compressed and destructive they get. Time to rethink the whole strategy, because there has to be a way to break unbreakable armor. Smashing? Nope. Piercing? Also nope. So this lunatic lands on option 3. If you can't break the armor, just rip it clean off her body, and he actually commits to it. Xian takes every single grain of sand he can control and blankets the Queen's entire body with it, then pictures a tight ripping motion in his head, twisting and peeling the whole shell off her flesh like he's opening a stubborn jar. The Queen starts screeching in pain immediately. The Ant Queen, instead of fighting back, starts gathering pure mana in her mandibles, cooking up a ranged counterattack while Xian is mid-peel. Turns out our boy isn't the only crazy bastard in this ant nest. The mana she's charging produces ultra-high frequency waves so nasty that Xian's ears start bleeding, and at this rate his brain might just pop from the pressure. What started as a straightforward boss fight has now turned into a raw contest of grit and pain tolerance. Xian thought his undressing plan was the galaxy brain play of the century. Who could have guessed the colony's leader had something up her many sleeves, and that something was making him leak from his ears and eyeballs. The rules are simple. Whoever dies first loses. This guy is a true hater. He will happily go to the grave with his enemy, if it means there's even a sliver of a chance at winning. The agonizing standstill finally snaps when Xian feels his consciousness shatter. Something breaks inside his body and severs the connection between it and his mind. He's hit his absolute limit and his useless body just can't keep up with his spite anymore. All he can think is how tired he is of being this pathetic and weak. The geyser must have heard those thoughts while scooping him up off the dirt, because Daodan starts roasting him, calling him a dumbass for nearly dying. And then miraculously, Xian reestablishes the connection between body and mind, wakes back up, and even cracks a joke that he'll let the geyser have the last hit. No meddling is needed though. That C-rank wolf ant queen was way above Xian's pay grade, and he still refused to give up, fought to the very end, and earned his right to live through pure persistence and creativity. Daodan is basically showering the kid with praise for the first time since they teamed up, which would be a beautiful moment, except Xian's eardrums are completely ruptured, and he can't hear a single word of it. Bro finally earns a compliment, and misses the whole thing. Realizing the kid's ears are cooked, the old man carries his limp body over near the Queen's corpse, to a small clearing, where a glimmering sphere is sitting there all neat and tidy. Xian asks what the deal is, so Daodan starts scribbling explanations on the walls. That sphere is the Queen's egg. It's medicine. Strawberry flavored too, and told our boy to eat it. Folks, all of us know that the strawberry part is a lie, so our boy squints at the wall, scribbles, confused as hell, but the message is clear enough. Gramps is pushing him to eat some mystery material again, and Xian has trauma. Last time this happened, it involved a sand angler's gallbladder, so he asks the obvious question, is swallowing this thing going to hurt like that damn gallbladder did? Daodan, being a stand-up guy, answers honestly, eating the egg will most probably kill him. One tiny problem. Xian's eardrums are still busted, so this life or death disclaimer goes completely unheard. Brohin just sees the old man's lips moving, and decides, I trust him, and leans his mouth toward the glittering egg. And here's the part that actually got me. This kid is a street rat from Neo Seoul. He's never even tasted a strawberry in his life, but if strawberries taste anything like this ant egg, then strawberries must be delicious as hell, and he's out here jokingly asking for seconds. Yeah, hold that thought, buddy, because in the next second, his face goes pale. The second the egg settles in, and then spikes of blood start bursting out all over his body. The bleeding that had just stopped kicks right back up, because our boy is now undergoing something called organ inversion, which is exactly as horrifying as it sounds, his intestines and everything around them getting twisted, pierced, and stirred like someone shoved a thorny stick in there. Turns out the queen ant's egg is normally used as a lethal poison. Even a small dose forcibly inverts a human's internal organs, and most people just die on the spot from the agony and shock alone. Strawberry flavored though. As the pain scrambles his brain, Zeon is cursing the old man out for dragging him through hell yet again. And honestly, it's valid. From Daeden's side, this is all part of the plan, expose the kid to a level of pain that would break the strongest wills, and his odds of surviving this crazy world go up. Great theory, Gramps. Shame about the execution, because phase 2 of organ inversion is Zeon throwing up gallons of blood. The fact that he's still standing at all is a miracle. But as the blood loss sets in and shock takes over, the kid starts reminiscing about the past few days, and man, this part actually stings. He thought he'd finally found someone to trust. Now he's wondering if Daeden is just a sadistic old man and if he was just another dumbass to Gramps this whole time. Man, this is funny. He's referring to himself as a dumbass even in his monologues. He slips and collapses into his own pool of blood and Daeden just watches. Let him writhe. And while our boy is convulsing on the floor, this man casually strolls over to the queen's corpse and starts rummaging through it like it's loot mode. Doesn't take him long either. He yanks a shiny piece of material out of her lower half and giggles because a beast's mana stone is on a whole different level from the mine stuff. This one's a straight up jackpot. Then he decides the ant bodies might be useful later and stashes the corpses in some independent storage space. All of this earns him the stink eye from his own sword, Crayon, and Daeden admits it. Yeah, he might have pushed the kid too far this time, but there was no other way. If he's weak, he dies. That's just how fate works. And besides, Crayon knows it as well as he does. They're running out of time. Cut to sunrise and Zeon continues his streak of beating unbeatable odds by simply waking up after napping like a blood-drained baby. First thing he sees? That annoying smile plastered on a wrinkly face. And bro does not process or negotiate. He goes straight into attack mode on his own mentor. Daeden warns him to quit kicking up dust while he's still being nice. But Zeon is not hearing any of it, literally or otherwise. He's already got a fresh batch of sand missiles loaded and locked onto the old man's position. Daeden tries one more warning, and our boy fires anyway. And look, you can't even blame him. The kid is running on pure autopilot, fully convinced the old man tried to murder him on purpose. His sand buries Daeden deep and he's moving and talking like a vengeful spirit with a grudge to settle. Then, not satisfied with just the sand, he reaches out to the spiky stalactites hanging off the colony walls, uses his fine grains to saw one of the giant spikes clean off, and brings the whole thing crashing down on Gramps. So that whole combo completely gassed our boy out. Impressive fireworks. Sure, but the mana and stamina bill came due immediately. And while Zeon is going on and on about how someone tried to assassinate him, the old man just sighs and seriously questions whether this kid has a single functioning brain cell left. Sure, maybe the queen's egg toxins rotted his brain a little, but that's no excuse not to use whatever's left in that thick skull. And then causally says, if I wanted to kill you, one flick to the forehead would have done the job. Why would someone bother poisoning a wormy little bastard? It's an insulting way to put it, but bro had to admit the logic checks out. So Daeden finally explains the thing he probably should have explained before feeding it to him. The queen's egg is a lethal poison that twists and stabs your organs, and if you survive that, it flushes every toxin and impurity out of your body. Deadly poison or heavenly medicine, depending on how you use it. And with all the internal filth gone, mana rushes in to fill the empty space. He must have felt the difference when he was trying to murder his own mentor just now. By the old man's estimate, our boy's mana just jumped threefold or fourfold. Free stat boost, minor organ trauma, fair trade. The second Zeon gets the actual explanation, he does a full 180, apologizing profusely and literally jumping into Daeden's arms, claiming he wasn't in his right state of mind. The old man doesn't make a big deal out of it. He's mostly just grossed out about being hugged by a snotty dude. Oh, and bonus, the egg healed his injuries too. His eardrums are fully restored, so he can hear insults in crystal clear audio again. What a blessing. Zeon refuses to let go, no matter how much Daeden protests, and while this idiot is clinging to him, the old man is internally chatting with his blade about the gamble they just took, letting him eat that egg. And here's the thing, Zeon's tearful apology was only partly fake. He mostly just didn't want to anger the old man any further. Smart, honestly, but Daeden figures the risk was worth it. If our boy doesn't get strong fast, he's nothing but dead weight, and sometimes reckless gambles pay off like today. So the old man scoops Zeon up like he weighs nothing. Time to leave this gloomy ant colony. Zeon's confused, dude. I can walk now. Why are you carrying me again? Well, since somebody slept for 4 straight days, they've wasted enough time underground, and there's only one quick way back to the surface. And the moment the old man points at the spiky ceiling, Zeon knows he's about to get hurt, whether he approves or not. Cut to the peaceful desert surface, getting rudely interrupted as these two burst out of the ground like a cork. Daeden's having a blast going full throttle. Zeon not so much. Why can't they ever travel like normal people? And the old man's like, I'd love a nice leisurely stroll if a certain dumbass hadn't napped for 4 days. He genuinely feels bad for whoever ends up marrying this pathetic kid. The teasing stops dead when Daeden spots something in the distance. Zeon claims nothing can surprise him anymore, then immediately shuts his trap, the second he follows the old man's line of sight. because up ahead is a land tortoise the size of a small island. This thing is nearly 30 kilometers away and still clearly visible. That's how stupidly big it is. Daewon explains it's the mobile fortress Arxelon, a giant pain in his ass that never gave him a moment's peace. The tortoise itself is only a B-rank magic beast, but its defenses blow past plenty of A ranks. Somebody actually tamed this thing, slapped modifications on its shell and turned it into a rolling fortress. The old man tells the dumbass to take a good long look, because seeing something like this makes anyone realize how big the world really is. There are true monsters out there capable of taming and riding a beast like that, and when the fortress rolls past them, both of these guys are basically the size of dirt stuck between the Arxelon's toes. Then the tortoise stops and someone jumps down from the shell. So the camera pans and we see another old man, and this guy looks even older than Gramps, which I genuinely didn't think was physically possible. The fossil spots Daewoden goes, "It's been a long time," and Daewoden greets his old friend the only way old monsters know how, by roasting him about how many teeth he's missing. The other geezer is shook that this man is over 100 years old and still looks that healthy. Daewon asks Pavelsa what brought him here since it's not his territory, and Pavelsa casually admits he was running away from some scavengers, and of course how can the old man not roast him for that? Immediately going running from scavengers is kind of pathetic, but Pavelsa's like, "It's called being wise, something you won't know about." Meanwhile all of this is happening, and our boy is just standing there wondering why every old man in this story is ridiculously overpowered. Meanwhile Pavelsa isn't even listening, he's staring at the massive stone turtle behind them, and then Daewoden points at the stairs on the thing and tells them they're climbing up onto the giant stone beast. Xion shrinks back as a giant eye locks onto him, and our boy decides the smartest play is to go completely silent and pray he doesn't register as food. That's when Pavelsa finally noticed him, and asked Daewoden if that's a new subordinate, and Daewoden grabs Xion up and says he picked up some trash to help the environment. The other old man cracks up, adjusts his monocle, and says the world must be ending if this guy is dragging someone around with him. Then they head inside, and Xion's jaw hits the floor because there's an entire city built on the turtle's back. Daewoden explains this is the Moat clan, all descendants of the Wizard of Ruin, and then adds that they're a bunch of useless people, right in front of his friend. The old man gets annoyed and asks what he even knows about their clan, and Daewon goes for the throat. He knows enough to say they'll all be abandoned the second the old man dies. He pauses and goes quiet for a second and just says they'll talk about this later. Cut to a fancy room and everyone sits down and Pavelsa is now ready to see the goods. With that, the old man opens a dark portal with his hand and dumps a mountain of treasure and rare equipment into the middle of the room, and Xion's first question is genuinely, how many lives did you take to get all this? He also asks if his master is secretly a wizard and where all this stuff even comes from, and Daodine complains that this idiot doesn't even know what a subspace is, and regrets bringing him along. Meanwhile, Pavelsa is inspecting the loot and praising the flawless quality of every piece until Daodine loses patience, tells him to stop kissing up, and asks what he's getting for all of it. Pavelsa jokes about paying in mana stones. Daodine was ready to throw hands. Bro does not do jokes about payment. So Pavelsa asks what he actually wants, and Daodine lists it out, a chest plate made from an ant queen shell plus a subspace item. Pavelsa laughs, why would the guy who already has the best gear want that? And Daodine once again grabs our boy who's been bonked twice at this point, and goes, it's for this dumbass. Pavelsa's eyes go wide and he's thinking for this man to care about someone, that kid must be useful for something. So he shouts across the room for a girl named Kay. The big metal door opens, and folks, the author knows how to do introductions. One looks at her assets, and our boy is planning a wedding in his head. Gramps asks if she still has that subspace bracelet she made a while back. She doesn't, but she has a gauntlet that turned out so well that she kept it for herself. He orders her to hand it to Xion, and she's like, I'm sorry, what? Daodine is surprised the little girl grew up into an enchanter, and praises the old man for leaving something actually useful behind for his granddaughter. And Gramps shoves her forward, tells her to do it without whining and to have a new chest plate made too. So Kay leads Xion through the city toward her workshop, and on the way she asks what her deal is with that monster of a master he has, explaining he met the old man by chance and has been dragged around ever since. She grabs him in a full panic, screaming that it's impossible to meet that man and still be alive. Xion looks in her eyes and recognizes it instantly, that's trauma. He flashes back to Daodine with glowing red eyes, and yeah, he gets it. She clocks his expression too, and figures he's got the same PTSD. Warns him that Daodine is a monster in human skin, and Xion agrees without a nanosecond of hesitation. They reach a big metal door and her whole personality flips. She gives a wild smile and tells him not to be scared. He's never seen anything like this in his life. She's not wrong. Xion walks in and just stands there, mouth open, staring at hundreds of insane items, all of which she brags she made herself. Then she brings out the masterpiece. It looks at it with thirsty looks that you guys are never gonna get from a girl, and starts expanding its features. It's a self-repairing subspace gauntlet made from super rare materials, fire attribute, with the potential to become a monstrous weapon with the right item inside. Xion reaches for it, says thanks, and doesn't let go. At the last second, my girl yanks her baby back, refusing to hand her creation to just anyone, and the two of them get into a full tug of war. Xian getting dragged across the workshop screaming, asking what she wants from him. He finally rips it free and cheers that her child is his now. And right on cue, a violent tremor shakes the whole workshop. Both of them stare at the ceiling, terrified, and Xian asks if he should, give the gauntlet back. She screams no. The turtles' roar means they have arrived. Xian asks who they even are, and she just looks up too scared to answer. Cut to the other room where Daotin is lounging on the sofa like it's a spa day, while his old friend stares at the ceiling and grumbles about how persistent those guys are. Then the scene shifts and Xian and Kay are sprinting down the stairs, and our boy is full on panicking, asking her if those really are the looters. And Kay's like, yeah, that's the Black Shark Gang, a bunch of psychos led by some low-level awakened captain who's basically feral and never stops moving, killing people for straight-up fun. Xian's honestly confused. Like, how is a weak warrior causing this much panic? They kick open this massive golden door into the main room. Kay's yelling for her grandpa, and Pavlisa just casually goes, yeah, I saw them too. She suggests they just grab the giant turtle and bounce, but Pavlisa says the gang's gonna catch up regardless, so now's actually the perfect time to fight back. Kay offers to round up the warriors, but Daoden shuts that down immediately, saying that they got this. Meanwhile, Kay's standing there totally lost, watching Gramps take a chill sip of his drink before suddenly yelling at Xian to gear up for battle. Our guy's like, wait, me? Out of the two of you mean me? And Daoden's reasoning is simple. You took the treasure, now you pay the price by fighting for it. Xian asks how he's supposed to beat a high-level awakened warrior, and the old man just stares him down and goes, what? You scared? Cut to Xian standing outside in the storm, pulling his hood up, cursing this old man out for pulling the cheapest move ever. The guy basically scammed him into this fight with nothing but a gauntlet as payment. No time to sulk though. He takes a breath, closes his eyes and starts strategizing, focusing on the weird power of this new gauntlet he's wearing. Up on the turtle, Pavels asks if it's really smart to leave the kid down there alone, and Daoden goes full tough love mode, saying Xian needs to learn to survive on his own, and if he loses he just dies. Simple as that. Pavels calls him out for being way too harsh on the poor puppy, but even he admits if the kid pulls through he could turn into something legendary. Then Gramps cups his hands and yells one final piece of advice down to Xian. The Black Shark Gang finally rolls up on the turtle, and their captain grins and orders his crew to wipe out every defender, show no mercy, and make it a lesson. His pirates roar and charge in, one of them screaming that everyone better remember the Black Shark Gang's name. Yeah, they'll remember it, just not for the reason he's hoping. Because right as they charge, the ground straight up explodes and launches the whole cavalry into the air. Guys screaming retreat, dust everywhere. The captain is yelling, is this a trap? And his chick swears the path was clear. It was very much not clear. Xian slides out of the shadows and grabs one of the captain's crew before she even realizes he's there, dropping her with one clean hit. That's one down, and the captain's grinding his teeth watching his people get folded this easy. Xian just stands there in the storm, wipes his face and coldly says, next. A blue-haired swordsman steps up and lunges at him with an energy slash so strong it splits the sand dunes, except it doesn't actually hit anything because Xian just blocked it with his blade. The captain screams a warning, and midair this guy has that classic moment of, oh no, I messed up. He tries one more desperate strike, the captain's yelling about dirty tricks, and a massive blast of earth and wind erupts right in front of Xian out of nowhere. The captain's crying foul about cheap tricks, but honestly, winning is winning. He charges in with a flaming punch, calling for backup from his ally for a combo attack. Doesn't matter, Xian moves once, the swordsman's down and the threat is neutralized. Standing there, glowing-eyed and covered in dirt, Xian flashes back to something. Daoden told him the old man noticed Xian was more hung up on taking a life than actually being in danger, and told him straight up, these guys aren't people, they hurt others for fun, no reason needed, and countless innocent folks have suffered because of them, so why feel bad for them? Xian plants his feet, grips his sword and decides, nah, monsters like this don't get mercy. The captain absolutely hates that energy, activating his red aura, cursing Xian out with pure hate in his glowing red eyes. Sand spears start raining down while an earth wall boxes Xian in. He starts throwing threats, saying he'll chop Xian up, feed him to desert monsters, and make his whole family suffer the full villain monologue package. Xian just replies with a cold little hello, then calmly asks if those are his last words. Up top, Daoden's watching with a genuinely proud smile at how fast his student's improving. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, our boy squares up for the final blow. So Xian just looks at him and goes, hey, trash, are those really your last words? So the bandit captain finally takes a second to look around and sees his entire crew turned into corpses, including his blue swordsman buddy, and bro just cannot process it. He goes full denial mode, muttering that these were strong warriors, there was no way some amateur took them out. And right on cue, a giant sand dragon forms behind Xian. The captain is visibly terrified, but instead of doing the smart thing and running, he clenches his fists, charges up all his fire energy and screams at Xian to stop hiding behind tricks and show his real power. He dives through the sandstorm, dodging sand spikes, leaps into the air, slams the ground with a whirlwind of flames, this huge destructive blast that cracks open a crater and everything, and then yells, asking what Xian's going to do next. Except when the smoke clears, Xian isn't there. He's spinning around in a panic like, where did this kid go? And Zeon reappears in his blind spot and slashes him with the sword, but the captain smiles through the cut because now Zeon is finally in his range. He grabs our boy, slams him into the ground with extreme prejudice and plants a foot on his chest while roasting his lack of combat experience. One mistake on the battlefield costs you your life, kid. Then he grabs Zeon by the neck and starts making him pay for every fallen crew member, literally screaming their names between punches in memory of his dead allies. Each hit is a fire-charged haymaker, and one of them sets off an explosion so big it carves another smoking crater into the desert. The bandit's got this psychotic grin going, telling Zeon none of his abilities work in his grip, except your weakness. Prepare for the end. Bro is monologuing mid-beatdown, which historically has never once worked out for a villain. He raises his fist for the finishing blow and Zeon just slips through his fingers. Our boy slides out of his own clothes like sand, leaving the gauntlet behind in the captain's hand, and the man is left punching air and calling Zeon a cowardly rat. Zeon answers by leaping up and planting a kick square in his back that has him spitting blood. The captain knows he messed up letting him escape, but he also notices something. Zeon's hits are way weaker without that gauntlet, so he starts cooking up a theory mid-fight. The gauntlet was an amplifier, the real secret behind the kid's destructive power. Zeon controls wind and the sand is just there to give his blows physical weight. Confident, he's cracked the code. He rushes in for pure hand-to-hand, throwing a violent punch and yelling that he's figured out all of Zeon's tricks and that a wizard without an amplifier could never beat a close combat fighter. And Zeon, flat on the ground, just grins at him, as he was feeling all too confident, thinking that he got Zeon's trick figured out. A giant earth spike erupts from the ground and skewers the captain straight through the back. Zeon had been patiently baiting him the whole time, playing weak until the man dropped his guard. But even while bleeding out, the captain's brain finally catches up. Wait, Zeon doesn't have the gauntlet anymore. No ordinary wizard could move this much sand without an amplifier, so who or what is this kid actually? Before he can finish that thought, more earth spikes punch through him and pin him in place, blood everywhere. In his final moments he realizes Zeon's power isn't wind at all. It's manipulating the sand, and although he's dying, he refuses to believe it because something like this shouldn't even exist. Meanwhile, up on the turtle, old man Pavilsa has been watching this whole thing in horror, muttering that the kid uses the desert itself as both shield and weapon. He breaks it down for us. The villain was the experienced fighter here, and going at him head-on would have gotten Zeon killed, so the kid, weaponized, looking weak, lured him in and struck at the exact right moment. Down below, exhaustion finally hits, and Zeon drops to his knees, spitting blood, completely drained. Pavilsa is genuinely impressed, saying it's incredible watching this kid invent combat techniques in the middle of an actual battle. This young man is definitely not ordinary. Beside him, Daeuden just keeps silently staring at the battlefield with that thoughtful look, and the old man turns to him with the only reasonable question left. Where the hell did you find a monster like that? Meanwhile, on the ground, Zeon is barely standing, wobbling around in the sand, clutching his arm and thinking, man, that was close, I almost died out there. Then he cracks a little smile, wondering if Gramps finally going to praise him for the win. Before he can even finish that thought, a crack rips open in the sand, and something screeches from above, and Zeon just freezes. And right on cue, Daeuden points his sword at him and calls him a fool for making a rookie mistake in the fight. Zeon's yelling, what mistake? Why am I getting scolded again? And the old man explains it through gritted teeth. Zeon spared the enemy swordsman and turned his back on him, a guy who was fully ready to shank him from behind. He asks how long this kid plans on being this naive in Mortal Kombat, then turns around and coldly tells him to head back, adding that with a mentality this soft, Zeon's gonna die real fast. Pavelza and Kay are just watching this whole roast session in silence, feeling bad for the kid. As he walks off, Dame hits him with one more, telling him to quit while there's still time. Zeon's standing there processing all of it when Pavelza walks up and thanks him warmly. The people here are simple blacksmiths. They can't fight, and without Zeon's courage, a lot of them would be dead right now. The clan leader is all smiles, praising his excellent work. Then Kay hugs him, telling him he was amazing against those pirates and to ignore the grumpy old man because he demands too much from everybody. But Zeon looks away because here's the thing, the old man wasn't even wrong. He confesses he knew the guy he spared might jump him. He just pretended not to notice and hoped the problem would walk away on its own. He knew those pirates were rotten and deserved it. He just didn't have the guts to take a life and carry that guilt. Then it clicks. Daeuden has probably watched a lot of good people die from that exact mistake, and the brutal scolding was his twisted grandpa way of trying to keep Zeon alive. Zeon smiles and concludes, the old man just really struggles with showing affection. The two blacksmiths are staring at him like he grew a second head, and Kay pinches his cheeks, asking if he hit his head somewhere, saying all this was way too much for a kid his age. Pavelza feels a little guilty watching a kid fight to protect grown adults who can't, so he invites everyone to eat and tells Zeon to go take a nice bath. Meanwhile, Daeuden is chilling in the palace, calmly flipping through some red book, when Zeon kicks the door open, yelling at him to stop pretending he's not in the room. The old man doesn't even look up, just sarcastically asks if the coward came to announce he's quitting. Zeon insists he won't break that easily, that the fight was nothing, and Daeuden, mid-sip of tea, points out one small detail. Kid, your hands are still shaking. But instead of dunking on him, the old man says that's normal. Only a fool feels nothing after a battle. Taking a life is never easy, and that guilt will stick with him forever. No need to forget the pain or get used to it, because the day Xian stops feeling guilty is the day he becomes one of the monsters he kills. That pain is proof he's still human. Then he ruins the moment by adding that if Xian can't handle the pressure, the exit's right there. Xian shouts that he already said he won't break, tells the old man to stop worrying so much, and then hits him with besides, how could I leave a stubborn old man to die alone with nobody around? Daodan stares at him in silence, then smiles a little and calls him a cheeky brat. Xian pushes his luck saying he'd missed the noise, and the old man slams his fist on the table while Xian screams for his life. Cut to the forge where a huge hammer is throwing sparks everywhere, and a whole squad of blacksmiths is working to stabilize a blade. Kay is amazed she's never seen this many master blacksmiths in one place, and Pavelza explains they're all here just to stabilize Daodan's sword. She can't believe one weapon has been radiating this much energy for days. Pavelza tells her the sword is called Crayon, a masterpiece born from one man's pure obsession, packed with countless enchantments and the souls of millions of magical beasts. It's less a sword and more a living thing at this point. Kay asks who made it, and the old man reveals the creator was a man named Crayon. Kay's like, the guy named his sword after himself. She's weirded out, and Pavelza just tells her to see it as art. Then he changes the subject and warns her, the visitors will be leaving soon. Daodan isn't the type to sit still, so he's probably already done packing. And back in the hall, Pavelza asks what on earth he's doing because Xian is just laid out on the floor, and Daodan tells him to ignore it, it's just discipline. So Kay's giving Daodan crap for smacking Xian around, and his defense is basically he does it to me too. Then Pavelza shows up, says the sword's almost done getting fixed, and tells Daodan to swing by and grab it. Daodan actually thanks him for real out loud, and this straight up breaks the old man's brain. He's just standing there still pinning Xian to the ground going, wait, did he just say thank you? For a second he couldn't believe his ears. But then Daodan starts explaining, saying how this is probably the last time they'll see each other. Pavelza gets kind of deep here, talking about how everyone who survived that whole tragedy just ran from it, living like ghosts, avoiding their own past because facing it was too much. But Daodan never looked away from any of it, carried the whole thing alone for like 100 years, and Pavelza respects the hell out of him for that. And how does Daodan react to this heavy speech? Just say thanks again, all is chill about it. Pavelza smiles and says hopefully they'll meet again soon, and he's actually shocked at himself for saying that a reunion from this guy. Then he clocks Xian smiling on his way out, and it clicks. The kid's the reason Daodan's different now. Meanwhile, Kay's off in the distance yelling that she can't wait to see them again either. Jump 2 weeks later and Pavelza's chilling alone on some empty mountain, thinking about how fast time moves when he casually goes, oh hey, I can see you sneaking up on me, which scares the crap out of Kay, who thought she was being sneaky. He asks how long she's going to keep pulling that move, then notices something's off with her. She admits she feels kind of empty lately. Turns out she's been thinking about Xian losing his mind over his new Queen Ant armor piece, shoving all his loot into his storage space like a kid on Christmas morning, even joking about Daodan hiding in there with him. She just hopes he stays that happy out on the road. Then she jokes Grandpa looks just like her and he claps back that she's still 50 years younger to be anything like him. Then he gets serious, asks her to help Xian out if their paths ever cross again, and she promises she'll build him the best gear she's ever made. Pavelza closes her eyes, sipping tea, totally sure she'll run into Xian eventually. He says helping the one who'll inherit Daodan's will is basically paying off an old debt, since honestly the whole world owes that man something. Cut to our boy and the old man and Xian once again getting bonked on the head. He's crying, has a bump the size of a golf ball, and is complaining the old man's going to knock what few brains he has left out through his ears. Daodan's excuse? Xian was too loud while hunting monsters, which is literally the job. Xian points at the giant sword and jokes even the weapon thinks Daodan's being ridiculous, so obviously he gets smacked again for that too, ending up face down in the sand with smoke coming off his head. Lying there eating sand, at least he's happy he burned through all his mana for the day. Mana's like a muscle, the more you push it the more it grows. This whole brutal training thing is because Xian lost his first real fight against another awakened person, some raider, and it messed him up. He got mad at how weak he still is, how careless he'd been, how even the random monsters he was killing fought harder to survive than he did in that fight. Never again, he tells himself. He looks at Kay's fire gauntlet and wishes he'd gotten gear sooner, wondering if he'll ever get to Daodan's level, or maybe even talk to his own weapon one day like Daodan does. Then he watches the old man literally whispering to his sword and wonders if the guy's going through some kind of phase. Xian pulls the energy core out of something he just killed and tosses it in his gauntlet's storage. He notices the sun setting weirdly fast. It turns out they've crossed into a new region and are navigating by the sun now. Daodan grins and says they've got a welcome party waiting. A massive dark rock sticking out of the sand, just the tip of a buried mountain so huge even the sandworms avoid it. Daodan just yeets himself straight to the top in one jump, and Xian sighs about how babysitting this old man is basically a full-time job. Then Earth pillars his own way up after him. They sit up there sharing dried meat, actually pretty calm and quiet for once. Daodan asks how he's doing. Xian says he's managing but still has a long way to go and asks when he'll finally master using sand as a weapon. Davin's answer, when you can cut through a full sandstorm in half. Xian heard it, and he's like, so basically never great. Then Davin mentions there's a dangerous dungeon nearby that could really sharpen his skills and asks if he's got the guts for it. Xian's ready to leave that instant, but the old man just tells him to go to sleep. But then they hear these panicked voices, they look over and people are running from something in the dark. So Xian squints for a better look and immediately clocks his soon-to-be elf harem down there. So he turns to the old man and offers to go take the monster out, and Davin just sarcastically asks if he'd rather go make friends with it instead. Down below, the elves are panicking, scrambling for anywhere to hide. One suggests they split up. The leader shuts that down as too risky, and then they spot the two humans up on the rock pillar. Xian is starstruck for about 5 seconds because this is his first time seeing elves, the legendary noble race, and then he hears their actual plan, which is to throw the humans to the monster as bait. And Xian's just standing there thinking K was better than every single one of you. Before he can even finish that thought, they've already scaled the rock, and the lead elf starts ordering them, get down there and lure the beast away so they can escape, with the whole squad drawing weapons to make the point. Xian tries to reason with them, like, you guys are clearly fast enough to escape on your own, but nobody's listening. And then the air just breaks. This crushing pressure slams down on everyone, and Xian's first thought is some unprecedented magic beast just showed up. The elves are clearly thinking the same. Face is frozen, but he quickly realizes this isn't a monster. This is pure survival instinct terror, worse than anything he's felt from any beast or awakened human. He looks around for the source and his blood runs cold. It's coming from Gramps. Davin's killing intent is so thick it's basically a physical force, and the leader's stammering, how can a human have power like this, is screaming at her squad to get a grip while they're already on their knees. And here's where pride writes a check her body can't cash. She cannot accept elves kneeling to a human, so she decides he has to die and fires a supercharged magic arrow. Xian screams, calling her stupid as it flies, then catches himself, like, wait, who am I even worried about? This guy's a monster. And yeah, Davin doesn't flinch, flicks his wrist, catches the arrow an inch from his own neck, and turns around with a face of pure fury. The leader's trying to rally a fighting stance, screaming they just need to kill this one human. Well, until Davin speaks, how did you survive? And before anyone can blink, he's already there, holding one of the elves, Jorah, by the head. He snarls that he killed them all decades ago, so how are they alive? The others are screaming at him to let go, outraged that a mere human would touch an elf, and he just asks again, low and deadly, how did you bastards survive? Who did you kill to survive this time? Then he squeezes and Jorah's head pops like a tomato. One stomp knocks the rest off their feet, and Davin recalls their twisted logic, human lives are worth less than bugs and spits. That even after seeing what the world's become, bastards like them haven't changed a bit. And Xian standing in the middle of all this, completely floored, his master's old words rattling around his head. The world becoming like this is all because of the non-human races. Right on cue, the ground erupts and the actual monster shows up, a colossal subterranean thing the elves call a sulcurus. And even in freefall toward this nightmare, these elves are still scheming. One screams at her companion Aurora to throw the smaller human onto the beast while she handles the one who killed Jorah. She turns around and the world splits in half. Davin's already moved monster and elf cut down in one strike, then drops 2 more mid-air, lands and catches the last schemer by the face. Terrifyingly calm, he goes, your village is nearby, isn't it? Answer and I let you go. She answers and curses, so he slams her into the ground, and that's that. The final elf is a trembling mess, begging him to stay back. Xian finally snaps, moved monsters over, pleading with him to strike, then stops, and Davin backhands his own student, sending him flying into the dirt without even looking. He turns back to the cowering elf, mocks her for trembling before a human, and with a wide maniacal grin, asks one last time, tell me where your village is, and if you do, I'll let you go. One look into this man's eyes and her loyalty to her entire race evaporates, her eyes flick toward the village. Davin smiles and launches off in a trail of dust. When it settles, she's alone, breaks into hysterical relieved laughter, thinking that she survived. But nope, because in the next second, her head falls off. Meanwhile, Xian drags himself out of the rubble bleeding, thinking, what the hell happened to that old man? Why is he acting like this? Then he looks down, realizing that without his new breastplate, he'd have at least 4 broken ribs. He looks at the devastation, the bodies, the sheer power his master just unleashed, and asks the only question that matters, why did he have to go this far? So our boy scrambles up and books it straight after the old man, and while he's running, Gramps' words to the elves keep looping in his head. That whole I had killed you all decades ago. Where were you hiding? And suddenly every rant his master ever gave about non-humans ruining the world hits completely differently. He reaches the village yelling for Davin, and then he just freezes. The entire elven village is on fire. Bodies everywhere. Straight up massacre. He ran here as fast as his legs could carry him, and he's still too late. He drops to his knees in the middle of it all, and then through the flames and his own crying, he hears something. Someone's alive. Hope kicks back in. He locks onto the sound and sprints into an alley following the cries, and the hope curdles into horror real quick, because by the time he gets there, Gramps has already sent them to the elf afterlife. Xian can't even process it. The same question just keeps rattling around in his skull. Why is the old man going this far? So he summons sand all around them, hoping to pin the old man down, and demands answers. Why do you have to take it this far? and Dayton just looks down at him and asks if he's trying to be a hero. Then he casually blasts him out of the sky with a wave of pure power, and our boy is tumbling through the air getting absolutely wrecked, with the same dead stare on Gramps the whole time, until Zeon slams into the ground hard enough to shake it. He crawls out of the dirt groaning, and Dayton plants a boot on his face and starts the lecture. "You're not a hero, you're just a reckless kid." Zeon admits he didn't step in earlier because he didn't get why the old man was this angry, and jumping in blind felt reckless, but killing elves who had already surrendered? That's crossing a line. Dayton grinds the boot in harder and goes for the jugular, saying Zeon throws the word understand around way too easily. Then he drags out the boy's own past, asking if the scavengers Zeon killed were even the ones who murdered his parents, pointing out that Zeon went full revenge mode too, and just slapped the word justified on it. Ouch, and then the real lecture starts. The elves' twisted mindset didn't show up overnight, and those four weren't some rare exception. Every non-human race thinks the same way. They hurt humans not for fun, not for religion, but simply because they could, and then cook up excuses, painting humans as the villains, so they never have to look in the mirror. Your pity is fake. The real world is a non-stop fight for survival. Figure out where you actually stand before lecturing anyone about humanity. He's seen the world before and after it fell apart, something Zeon can't even imagine. But Zeon forces himself up. Dayton turns to leave and drops one last line. "Will you still believe in that naive stuff? Once you know the truth?" Zeon asks. "What truth?" Dayton goes, "Everything," calls him young and dumb, mixing up recklessness with justice, and Zeon claps back that this same old man is the one who taught him to never give up, and he swears that even if he ends up seeing everything his master's seen, he's not dropping his beliefs. They stare each other down for a second, 2 generations of the same broken world at odds, and then the old man gives in, tosses him some clothes, tells him to look around the village for his answers, and walks off back to Arch alone. So Zeon starts poking around, and right away something feels off. The village is nothing but houses. No shops, no restaurants, no farms. That's not a place people lived, that's a place people slept. Then he finds a chest full of trinkets and jewelry in a style he's never seen in any human city, and the stuff looks over 100 years old, which makes zero sense, because the official story says non-humans only showed up 100 years ago when the world turned into a desert. No way. A culture builds that kind of history in a single century. He finds a tablet covered in weird alien writing, and a nasty theory starts forming. What if they didn't just appear out of nowhere? What if they existed way before that and some insanely powerful being dragged them all to Earth? And if something like that is out there, then everything he's ever believed about his world is a lie. Then the final, worst piece drops. Another chest. This one stuffed with bloody belongings that used to belong to humans. And that's when it clicks. Why there were no shops or farms. They never needed any. They got everything by killing people and taking it. Cut to outside the village, and our boy is destroying everything. Then he gets on his knees, touches the ground, and in the next second, the whole place is swallowed by sand. He gets up, looks at where the city used to be.